Good Saturday morning, everyone, and welcome in to today's daily Bible reading for October the 14th. Today we are reading together here in First Chronicles chapter 12. First Chronicles chapter 12, which is going to show us the amassing of David's support within Israel, and it's going to culminate with him being made the king at the end of the text. So let's read here in First Chronicles chapter 12. Again, the point of the Chronicles is not just to give a historical retelling of Israel's past. It does that, though not in its entirety. It focuses, in fact, on different things than what we saw in the Samuels and the Kings, but instead there's a very important theological purpose, and it seems that this purpose is to really cement the reality of David being Yahweh's king and how that ended up coming about. So let's read here in First Chronicles chapter 12, verse number 1. The following were the men who came to David at Ziklag, while he was still banned from the presence of Saul, son of Kish. Remember, I also mentioned here that this chapter covers a very long time span, all the way from when he was on the run from Saul to his coronation as king. So keep that in mind. They were among the warriors. First Chronicles 12, verse number 1. They were among the warriors who helped him in battle. They were archers who could use either the right or the left hand, both to sling stones and shoot arrows from a bow. They were Saul's relatives from Benjamin. Their chief was Ahiezer, son of Shemaah, the Gibeathite. Then there was his brother Joash, Jeziel, and Pelet, sons of Asmaveth, Berakah, Jehu, the Anathite, Ishmaiah, the Gibeonite, a warrior among the 30, and a leader over the 30, Jeremiah, Jahaziel, Johanan, Jozabad, the Gederathite, Eluzai, Jeremoth, Bealiah, Shemariah, Shephatiah, the Horophite, Elkanah, Yeshaiah, Azarel, Joazer, and Joshobeam, the Korahites, and Joella, and Zebediah, the sons of Jehoram from Gedor. Some Gadites defected to David and his stronghold in the deserts. They were valiant warriors, trained for battle, experts with shield and spear. Their faces were like faces of lions, and they were as swift as gazelles on the mountains. Azer was the chief, Obadiah second, Eliab third, Mishmanah fourth, Jeremiah fifth, Attai sixth, Eliel seventh, Johanan eighth, Elzabad ninth, Jeremiah 10th, and Melchbani 11th. These Gadites were army commanders. The least of them was a match for 100, and the greatest of them for 1,000. So basically, they could take down 100 by themselves or even 1,000 by themselves. These are the men who crossed the Jordan in the first month when it was overflowing all its banks, and put to flight all those in the valleys to the east and to the west. Other Benjaminites and men from Judah also went to David at the stronghold. David went out to meet them and said to them, "If you have come in peace to help me, my heart will be united with you. But if you have come to betray me to my enemies, even though my hands have done nothing wrong, may the God of our ancestors look on it and judge." Then the Spirit enveloped Amasai, chief of the 30, and he said, "We are yours, David. We are with you, son of Jesse. Peace, peace to you, and peace to him who helps you, for your God helps you." So David received them and made them leaders of his troops. Some Manassites defected to David when he went with the Philistines to fight against Saul. However, they did not help the Philistines because the Philistine rulers sent David away after a discussion. They said, "It will be our heads if he defects to his master Saul." When David went to Ziklag, some men from Manasseh defected to him. Adnah, Jozabad, Jediel, Mishael, Jozabad, Elihu, Zilithai, chiefs of thousands in Manasseh. They helped David against the raiders, for they were all valiant warriors and commanders in the army. At that time, they came day after day to help David until there was a great army, like an army of God. The number of the armed troops who came to David at Hebron to turn Saul's kingdom over to him, according to Yahweh's word, were as follows. From the Judahites, 6,800 armed troops bearing shields and spears. From the Simeonites, 7,100 valiant warriors ready for war. From the Levites, 4,600 in addition to Jehoiada, leader of the house of Aaron, with 3,700 men, and Zadok, a young valiant warrior with 22 commanders from his ancestral family. From the Benjaminites, the relatives of Saul, 3,000. Up to that time, the majority of the Benjaminites maintained their allegiance to the house of Saul. From the Ephraimites, 20,800 valiant warriors who were famous men in their ancestral families. From the half-tribe of Manasseh, 18,000 designated by name to come make David king. From the Issacharites, who understood the times and knew what Israel should do, 200 chiefs with all the relatives under their commands. From Zebulun, 50,000 who could serve in the army, trained for battle with all kinds of weapons of war, with one purpose, to help David. From Naphtali, 1,000 commanders, accompanied by 37,000 men with shield and spear. From the Danites, 28,600 trained for battle. From Asher, 40,000 who can serve in the army, trained for battle. From across the Jordan, from the Reubenites, Gadites, and half-tribe of Manasseh, 120,000 men equipped with all the military weapons of war. All these warriors lined up in battle formation, came to Hebron, wholeheartedly determined to make David king over Israel. All the rest of Israel was also in one mind to make David king. They spent 3 days there eating and drinking with David, for their relatives had provided for them. In addition, their neighbors from as far away as Issachar, Zebulun, and Naphtali came and brought food to donkeys, camels, mules, and oxen, abundant provisions of flour, fig cakes, raisins, wine, and oil, herds and flocks. Indeed, there was joy in Israel. And that is 1 Chronicles chapter 12. 1 Chronicles chapter 12. All right, so here within this text of 1 Chronicles 12, we see the amassing, as I mentioned earlier, of David's support within Israel. That it begins during the time whenever David was a convict of sorts while he was being pursued by Saul. Remember, Saul's paranoia got the best of him. He hated David because David was gaining the hearts of the people. In fact, we go back to, we go back to chapter 11 and verse number 2, where all Israel had come to David at Hebron and had said, even previously when Saul was king, you were leading Israel out to battle and bringing us back. So David was recognized that even during Saul's reign, David was someone who had great influence among the people, and he did so because of his good godly character, because he was a strong, courageous warrior, not someone who was very paranoid and acted very cowardly as even Saul did. So David here is amassing these warriors, and he's amassing, really good warriors. That's something I want to recognize within this chapter, is that David wasn't amassing warriors who were just run-of-the-mill guys. He wasn't just getting the scrubs, the leftovers of Saul and so on, but he was amassing really, really good fighters. As is described here, they were archers who could use either the right or the left hand, both to sling stones and to shoot arrows from the bow. They were Saul's relatives, even from Benjamin. So there are some even from within Saul's own tribe who were coming to David, recognizing that he was the one who needed to have their support. In fact, I like what was said from those in from verse 32, when it talks about those who were from Issachar. They understood the times and knew what Israel should do. They understood the times. They understood that David was the rightful man who needed to be leading Israel. So all these people end up coming. There's some Gadites who come. They are described in verse number 8 as valiant warriors, trained for battle, expert with shield and spear. Their faces were like the faces of lions. They were fierce, but they were also swift as gazelles on the mountains. These people came to David and they were ready to fight for him. There's some that could take on 100 warriors by themselves. There were some who are described as being able to take 1,000 warriors by themselves, and they were able to fight against those in the valleys to the east and to the west of their location. We also read about some other Benjaminites who come to David, and David's cautious with these Benjaminites because he knows that, again, there's great loyalty within the tribe, and understandably so, toward the king who is from their own tribe. So he isn't just going to accept them right off the bat as if there is nothing more to consider. He says, listen, I'm just going to let you know, if you're with me, that's great. My heart is with you. But if you've come just to betray me, know that God will look on it and he will judge. See, that's the big difference between David and Saul, that David was fully dependent upon God. He trusted in God all throughout his journey. Yes, he made mistakes. We're going to read about one, I think, in a second, where he joined himself with his Philistines. And again, I don't really know what's going on. It's a bad look, I think. And we talked about this all the way back in 1 Samuel 29, that we're just not really sure, what exactly is David doing here, joining himself with the Philistines, being ready to go and fight against Saul. Was he actually going to fight against Saul? Was he going to betray the Philistines and fight for Saul against them? We just don't know, but it's a pretty rough position that David got himself in there during that chapter of his journey. But again, vastly, for the most part, the vast majority of the time, David had his mind and heart in the right place and did the right thing. That's why he could be said to be a man after God's own heart. So the Spirit actually ends up enveloping Amasai, the chief of the 30, and he speaks of David and pledges allegiance to David, and recognizes too that God was helping David throughout this entire journey. Again, we see that scene there with the Philistines. They don't trust David. Maybe rightfully so. I think it was a good move on the Philistines' part to not allow an Israelite to come into battle with them against other Israelites, lest they might turn around and start attacking you as well. We read about David just having great success. He amassed such a great army that's described like an army of God. Again, there's these consistent mentionings of God. That God is with you, or David invokes the name of God, or his army is like that of God. Why? Well, because this was God's will. It was according to God's word, according to his will, that the kingdom would be handed over from Saul to David. I made mention yesterday that Saul was the king that the people deserved because they did not rely upon Yahweh, but David was the king they needed, someone after God's own heart. So we see all these men who end up coming and fighting in his army, 300,000 plus total men. I think somebody did some math, like 336,000 something another individuals, but we'll say 300,000 plus were in this great army of David, and all these warriors. They were lined up for battle. They were lined up in battle formation. They came to Hebron, and they wholeheartedly determined to make David king over all Israel. But why? Because again, this is according to Yahweh's word. This was the will of all Israel, because they now were relying upon him. And at the end of all this, after they had this great, incredible feast, this celebratory feast, notice at the end, indeed, there was joy in Israel. Why? Because they were not doing things their way. They were not trying to force God's hand, and again, God's hand will not be forced by mankind. He might relinquish and allow man to experience what happens whenever they don't trust in him. But now they truly are trusting in Yahweh, allowing him to put the king in place that needs to be put in place. And when that happens, there is joy in Israel. And the same thing is true for our lives, friends. When we allow God to work in and through our lives the way he desires and in the way that he knows that is best for us, when we trust in his word and allow it to guide us and allow it to shape us and motivate us, then there too will be joy for us. Joy within our own hearts, joy within our families, joy within our churches, joy within our communities, even joy within an entire nation, if God is recognized as the great influence that he should be, the one who should guide us in everything that we do. That was true during this moment in Israel's history. And yet, we're going to notice tomorrow, as we read in chapters 13 and 14, specifically in 13, that David, again, he was great. It wasn't perfect. He made a mistake in chapter 13 we're going to read about, and we'll see the trouble that comes from that. And yet we'll see that once he turns back to Yahweh, we'll see blessings coming upon him once again. If you have any questions or comments about what we have here in First Chronicles chapter 12, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. And I appreciate so much you taking the time to read along with me today. Hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. May God bless you, and hope you're making plans to be with us tomorrow as we gather for our Bible studies and for worship. Take care, and God bless.